Welcome, everyone. It's so great to see you, and I hope I'm going to see most of you in person in just 2 short weeks. I can't believe it's coming up so quickly. I don't know what happened to April. For those of you who don't know, we do have some new people coming and going, but I'm Jill Kagan, Director of the Arch National Respite Network and Resource Center. For those of you who are new, this particular event we try to hold annually, and we're pretty successful at that. And we normally do it in conjunction with the National Lifespan Respite Conference, the Spring Brag and Borrow portion. And we so look forward to this event every year. But with the convenience of Zoom now, we are able to hold the Bring, Brag, and Borrow sessions virtually this year. That will allow some folks who are not able to travel to still be able to participate. And it'll also give us a little bit more time at the in-person meeting because we have a packed agenda for that as well. I think we'll go ahead and show the slides. Get started. Let me get a little bit more organized here. Sorry about that. I apologize. I'm getting organized. You all can see the slides okay, right? I hope.
Yes, we can see them.
It appears to be on the opening slide,
Excellent.
day one.
Very good. Okay. Marcia, you can go to the next slide, please. I know you're all very familiar with Zoom, but I just wanted to give you a few friendly reminders. You all are muted right now when you're not speaking. But we hope that later on, when we open the mic for Q&A and for small group discussions, you'll be able to share your screen and unmute yourselves. If you find that your internet bandwidth is limited, we have found that it does help to turn off your camera, although we love to see you. So that's up to you. As I did mention, we will have time for questions and answers during the event, this long 3-hour event. And we will have small breakout groups at the end of the day. But again, please feel free to post a question or a comment in the chat at any time, and we'll do our best to get to it. If you do get disconnected, just log back in with the link you received in your confirmation email. If you're having trouble, we are very fortunate to have back with us Marcia O'Malley, who was with us when we were doing virtual sessions back during COVID. She's going to be assisting today with any technical difficulties that we might have. And you can send her a chat message or text her at the number on the screen, and texts only, please. You may want to jot down that number in case you get disconnected and you can't find your way back. But Marcia will put that in the chat too. Thank you so much, Marcia. We're really glad to have you back. Next slide, please. I know that for most of you, I hope you've put your name in the chat and the state that you're from. I see many of you have already done that. We'd also like you to answer this question if you would. It'll help us make sure that we're meeting your needs. If you would let us know what it is you hope to get out of the Learning Symposium over the next 2 days, that'll be very helpful for us. The next slide. I am really happy to introduce you to the amazing Arch team. Again, I think most of you know everyone, but for those of you who don't, we have a team that just provides so much experience and passion in the training and technical assistance that we provide, and we're just so thrilled to have them working with us at Arch. I've listed on this slide the primary areas that they each cover, but we do function as a team. We have the expertise to work across subject matter and to support each other in providing the training and TA in very often multiple and overlapping areas. First, I want to say hello to Cassandra Furman, who heads up our work on performance measurement and evaluation. Cassandra, if you want to say hi.
Well, yes, and I just want you to know I'm really, even though this is my last year working full
No.
level, I am always so excited to learn about the innovative things that are going on in the respite world. So thank you for letting me be with you today. I'm going to learn a lot, I know. Thanks.
And Susan Summers, who heads up our work in sustainability planning and innovative and exemplary respite services.
So hello, everyone. A little bit about me. I was a sibling caregiver for my eldest brother with a disability growing up. Studied early childhood special education. And while I was there, I was testing a new screening instrument in a respite program. And I fell in love during that time. And I think Cassandra was one of the people on the hiring panel that hired me to direct that respite program. That's how I came to respite. I'm a full-time caregiver now. So in case you need reminding that what you do is valuable, I'm, I'm here to affirm how much your work means.
Thank you, Susan. And we have Cheryl Donnell, who many of you know is the facilitator of the Learning Collaborative on implementing the national strategy.
Hello, everyone. I'm from Nevada, and I've been a family caregiver for over 34 years, and have used respite in my life and have advocated for it, and off and on have been involved in the lifespan respite programs in our state, the last serving as the executive director for the Nevada Lifespan Respite Care Coalition. And now I'm expanding my experience as a compound caregiver, as my parents are in their late 80s and my husband had a stroke last year. And so I am now in it until I don't know when, but in it for sure, and grateful for all your efforts to be leaders on lifespan respite.
Thank you, Cheryl. We're so thrilled to have all of these folks with us. We're going to be sad to see Cassandra go, but I'm hoping occasionally we can bring her back in when we need her expert guidance. We have two other consultants that do a lot of work for us. I don't believe they're on the call today, but I wanted you to know their names. One is Monica Ewell, who does most of our fact sheets and other types of product development. And Kim Whitmore, who I think a lot of you do know, who's also working with us on a lifespan respite special projects, evaluating our respite provider training curriculum, but she also heads up the Arch Respite Research Initiative and our collaboration with her on the break exchange. So we're just we have such tremendous partners and just so excited that we can turn to them to share their expertise with you. Tomorrow, I'll be providing an update on Arch products and activities. So you will be hearing in more detail about the specific resources and training opportunities that are available for you. Does anyone have any questions about our staff or how Arch functions? Okay, we can go to the next slide. We do have a couple of polling questions, and before we get started, I know that many of you are relatively new to working on the Lifespan Respite Care Grant in your state agency or in your coalition, and we really want to be mindful of that as we engage over the next 2 days, and also for planning for future training and TA activities. So if you would indulge us and respond to this first polling question about how long you have been working on the Lifespan Respite Grant with your state agency or with your coalition. Are we done? Is everyone done voting?
Yes, and I just
Oh.
shared it. Jill, do you see
Oh,
it on your screen?
Okay, yeah, sorry about that. Oh, look at that. We've got almost 1/4 of you have been with your project for less than a year. So you are a bunch of newbies here. Most of you have worked at least between 1 and 5 years. And then we've got a few of you, about 13 of you who have been with us for a long time. So it's a really good spread of people that can act as mentors and advice givers to those of the rest of the network who are new. And then the next question. Marcia's sharing the results with you now. The next question is this the first time you've participated in a Lifespan Respite Grantee and Partner Bring, Brag, and Borrow? And look at that. We've got about a 50-50 split almost. But a little bit more than half have not. So this is going to be very exciting for all of you. Wonderful. Thank you for sharing that information. You can go to the next slide, Marcia, when you get a chance. I did want to just remind you that before we start today's meeting, I would be remiss if I didn't remind you about the in-person Lifespan Respite Grantee and Partner Learning Symposium that, as most of you know, we're holding in conjunction with the National Lifespan Respite Conference. And we will start off on May 20th in the evening. We're going to have just a short 1-hour reception for those of you who are already in town and want to just come meet and greet for a short time. We'll have that opportunity. And then we'll meet the next day, May 21st, from 9 to about 3:30 with breakfast available from 8 to 9. So you can come down a little bit early, register, and have something to eat. I do want to let you know that we do need a head count so that we have enough food and enough handouts for the day. And you may have registered and paid for the National Lifespan Respite Conference, which begins also on the 21st, but in the evening. But we would still be very appreciative, if you haven't done so already, if you could remember to register for the Learning Symposium. There's no extra charge for this event. We just need to know who's coming. And if you could try to do that before the end of the week, if you haven't already done it, please register at the link on the screen. You will need a code to register, and the code is Symposium 2024. And Marcia will put the link and the code in the chat. We really appreciate that. I think most of you have registered, but I know that there were a number of you who have not, and I just wanted to remind you. Okay, next slide. Just a quick overview of the agenda. We'll start off with a welcome from our illustrious federal project officers. Move right into the Bring, Brag, and Borrow presentations. When that's over, we've set aside some time for you to ask questions of your colleagues who just did the sharing about anything that they might have presented about or about anything else. We'll take a short respite break at about 2:45. And we do have this scheduled break, but I want to remind you that you should feel free to take a break whenever you need to. We know that for many of you, we're cutting into your lunchtime. So if you need to, please just feel free to go out and get something to eat or bring it back to your desk. But that's the beauty of virtual events, that you can come and go and connect with us again. And then we're going to move into some small group networking discussions about meeting surprises head on. And this is really an attempt to connect our newbies with our more experienced folks. And then we'll close with a report back and a wrap up of the day. Next slide. I'm really so pleased to that Lori Stahlbaum and Emily and Nazier are with us today. We're so grateful for all of the work that they do as our federal project officers, for being so accessible to all of us all of the time, and for the time that they're spending with us today. And I want to give them just a few minutes to say hello and provide any updates that they'd like to. Lori?
Good morning and good afternoon, everyone. My name's Lori Stahlbaum. I'm the team lead for the Lifespan Respite Care Program here at ACL within the Administration on Aging. Jill told me to keep it brief, and when Jill gives you instructions, I try to follow instructions. Keeping things brief is difficult for me, but no major updates because I will be in Albany at the Symposium, and I'm very excited because it's my first chance to travel to a conference. I missed Madison last year, which was really sad because I'm from Wisconsin and I love Madison. I've been working on the Lifespan Respite Program for about 5 years now. I've been with the Administration on Aging, Administration for Community Living. It'll be 23 years this September. I've had the good fortune to work on a lot of programs, but I really honestly have to say that this Lifespan Respite Program is like the best. All the people, all of you all that we work with, it's just a pleasure and a joy, and we love being able to see things grow and see the obstacles overcome. It's just and the work you're doing and the people you're reaching across the lifespan. There are very few programs that have that kind of focus, and it's a real honor to be a part of this experience and to be able to assist you in whatever way we can. And yes, I would say welcome to the quote newbies. You won't be new for long because we like to throw people into the deep end. I think you probably know that already. And for those who've been here a long time, well, it's wonderful to see you. And, you know, we all have to start sometime, but we learn from our peers and we grow with the people who surround us. So welcome. And I know I love Bring, Brag, and Borrow, so I wouldn't miss it for the world. Thank you. Emily?
Thank you, Lori. Go ahead, Emily.
Oopie.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the 2024 Lifespan Respite Grantee and Partner Learning Symposium, Bring, Brag, and Borrow sessions. And it's actually taking place during Older Americans Month and Mental Health Awareness Month. So I did want to note those two important events as well. I'm so grateful to be here and really want to thank Jill Kagan and the entire Jill Kagan, the Director of ARCH, Access to Respite Care and Health, National Respite Network and Resource Center, as well as her entire team for advocating, organizing, and innovating amazing programming such as this to bring Lifespan Respite Program grantees and partners together to learn, to help build on best practices involving respite for family caregivers of people across the lifespan. It is such a joy and honor to be with you all today. As Lori said, I'm also a federal program officer in the Lifespan Respite Care Program and work alongside Lori Stahlbaum, who is the team lead of the program. You all probably know Greg Link, our outstanding director of the Office of Supportive and Caregiver Services, and we all work in the Administration on Aging here at ACL. It's really an honor to serve, for me personally, to serve in this incredible space as a gerontologist, as someone who has personal experience caregiving for a family member, as well as also being a respite provider for someone that was working in hospice. So this is a real personal and meaningful work for me, as well as being a trusted gerontologist in the field. And it's so exciting to see a lot of the grantees that I've talked to, I've corresponded with via email, and also seen at the NASHB conference this year. So it's really such a pleasure to be back and to say hello to everyone. And I'm really looking forward to learning more about all the projects that I've learned about and read about since I've been with AOA for the last year, and to really lean into all of the presentations that you all have been working on and all of the projects that you have been so committed to, that you have been developing, and that we'll get to hear about over the next few days. So I am so excited and proud of all the work that you all are doing. I want to extend this warm welcome to you all. And I'm really excited about working together on prioritizing the caregiver infrastructure to support all older adults and people with disabilities and chronic illnesses across the health and wellness spectrum, regardless of their age. So thank you again. I'll turn it back over to Jill, and have a wonderful next few days. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Emily and Lori. I can't say enough how lucky we are to have both of you providing guidance to all of us and to the state grantees and to the coalition. So thank you again for everything that you do. Next slide. We're really excited to launch into day one of our Bring, Brag, and Borrow session. We have part one of the sessions today. For those of you who have done this before, you know that this is a fairly rapid fire hour in which one person from each state shares in no more than 5 minutes a highlight of their Lifespan Respite Grant or Coalition activities from the past year. It's meant to give you a chance to show off your significant accomplishments and encourage you to follow up with your colleagues. If you hear something that you might want to replicate in your own state, or if you want to share a similar experience, and even better this year, if you're able to travel and you're attending the National Lifespan Respite Conference in Albany in a couple of weeks, you may be able to connect up and set up a time to meet with someone that you hear from today and want to learn more about what they're doing. We would request that if you're sharing an activity that is outside your funded Lifespan Respite Grant activities, that you describe how that activity intersects with or enhances your Lifespan Respite projects. And this year, we've also asked you to let us know with which national strategy goal or outcome your highlighted activity is aligned. So thank you for sending that information. We intend to use it and share it with the RAISE Family Caregiving Advisory Council and the Advisory Council to support grandparents raising grandchildren, because they are continuing to meet to monitor progress that's being made by states and communities in implementing the national strategy. And I know they'll be very grateful to learn about what the Lifespan Respite grantees are doing. We will proceed according to the schedule that you see on the slide. We did try our best to group presentations by similar topics, and the topics for this first session are respite models using students as respite providers, serving grandparents and relative caregivers, planning for the future, systems building, connecting caregivers to services and providers to improve access, and then evaluating caregiver support. We did send you the schedule in advance. And if you notice on the printout, if you were able to print it out, it does have a column where you can jot down a question or a comment for that presenter so you don't forget. You know, if you heard something that you want to learn more about, you can take notes on that sheet. The link to the schedule, if you can't put your hands on it right now, can be found at the bottom of the slide. And I think Marcia probably has already put it into the chat so you can access it easily and print it out and use it. When everyone's done presenting, as I mentioned earlier, we have allotted some time to ask questions of your colleagues. I do want to point out that we will be sharing your slides from our screen on this end, and Marcia will be advancing the slides for you. So please remember to let her know when you want her to go to the next slide. Also, I've posted all of your PowerPoint presentations, your video links, or if you shared handouts and documents, we've posted them on the Arch website that you can find again at the link on the bottom of this page, and it's in the chat. as well. So you can actually go and look at someone's slides or look at the handouts that they're referring to. For those of you that did put links to flyers or documents in your slide, I think we're just going to go ahead and put those links in the chat rather than pulling them up on the screen right now in the interest of time. But everybody will have access to all the materials that you're referencing. And I think we can go ahead and get started with our first group. Our first topic is respite models using students as respite providers. And our first presenter, if you want to go to the next slide, is Megan Bettinger from the Colorado Respite Coalition. The floor is yours, Megan.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead and next slide. Thank you. So just quickly, I'm the program director at Colorado Respite Coalition. I was kind of recently promoted, so very excited about that. So I just wanted to say that Colorado Respite Coalition is a program of Easter Seals, Colorado. So we're not our own separate nonprofit. But however, we market everything separately from there. We have our own separate website and all of that. New Adventures is a program for children that have disabilities, a Saturday respite program for children ages 6 to 18. You go ahead and next slide, please. Okay, so I'll just get a little history here. In the fall of 2022, there was a grant opportunity through the Colorado Department of Healthcare Policy and Financing. And they received a sizable amount of money from the ARPA Act, which is the American Rescue Plan Act. So we applied, and so our project is based on a program called Discovery Club that Easter Seals has been running for, many years, at least 10 years. And the program, like I said, is for children that are 6 to 18 with disabilities. It's a Saturday program from about 10 to 3. I think Discovery Club is 10 to 4. The key with the program is that we have a donated space. It's usually a church that has some sort of playground or some kind of safe environment for the kids to go outside. But the key to this is that we use nursing students. So in the Denver metro area, which is a big sizable population and kind of goes from the top of the state to the bottom, right at the east of the Rockies there. There are several nursing schools. So their Discovery Club program is very robust, and they have 4 sessions a month, and so they're always rotating to different sites. Ours is a little different. So the idea of our program was to hit those kind of remote and rural areas around Colorado. We initially chose southern Colorado, Trinidad area, Alamosa area for the number of nursing schools that are located in those areas. So the idea is that the nursing students get clinical hours and volunteer hours by coming in and helping us run the program. They would also be supervised by a nursing instructor, and then we have an RN that is the program oversight for each session. So the RN program oversight would review all the applications and kind of assign cases to the different nurses or different schools. So yeah, so anyway, in our program, we partnered with Adams State University, which is located in Alamosa, Colorado. And so we were kind of late we did a lot of planning before, and then we were doing outreach and pretty much everywhere in that area. They did finally respond to us. So by the time that we got everything put together, it was pretty late in the fall. My back up, I didn't tell you that my program was a year-long pilot project. So the first part of the year, about that first 7-8 months, was planning and then design of the program. So they responded to us. They didn't have a lot of dates that were available, but we managed to schedule like 6 or 8 weekends. It turned out we only did 4, and this was due to the amount of students that were available to run the program, to be there for the kids, and then the amount of parents that actually completed applications. There was a lot of, I think, maybe mistrust, or kind of, who are you guys? Like, why are you here? Why are you offering this for us? And so that was really frustrating for my program coordinator. She does live in that area, and that's why we kind of chose her. But she was just as frustrated. You know, it's a difficult market to kind of break into, is what we found in Alamosa. So we ended up having 4 sessions. We only, well, I want to go on that in the next page, but anyway, so that is kind of, it was not as big of a outcome as I would have liked to have seen. Next slide, please. Okay, so our outcome for the first year, we had 4 sessions and the same child came every time. Great kid. Every time we had a session start, we had more than, for an example, we had like 5 nursing students. So we were expecting 5 children, or it depends on kind of what care ratio they need. But generally it was 1-to-1. So we had the students there. We had the one student, the one kiddo come, and we basically just kind of sat and entertained him all day. But I thought it is a success to me, because I feel like we were able to reach out. We did make a connection in the community, and she wants to repeat that if we come back to Alamosa this fall. So I'm just going to say kind of what went well for the program. So I said we only had the 1 child. We did create that like connection with Adams State. We're still working on that, but yeah, anyway. So then we also created a program that can be grown and further developed in that area. We also learned that we needed to be in the community a little bit earlier. We needed to do more outreach, and it just a little bit better on the planning side of things. So what didn't go well for us, I think, was we have a very cumbersome application, and that we got from Discovery Club. They shared theirs with us, so we used theirs. It's a challenge for them to like access the PDF, get doctor signatures, and so on. So you know, the other thing is that going into an area and just assuming that somebody's going to be interested in your program I was a little naive with that. So, but the second year, which started in January here, so far, we decided to go to Durango. We were kind of put Alamosa on the back burner. Durango, Colorado also has a nursing school at the community college, and there's a college called Fort Lewis College there that's beginning a 4-year nursing degree. So we made connection with them. They were very excited about the possibility of having the nursing students have additional, another way to get their clinical hours. So we just finished with 2 sessions. We had 2 children. And the reason we only had the 2 children was, again, the amount of nursing students that were available to us. We are still working on it. We just got off actually a call right before this meeting. We've already planned 3 sessions for the summer. The nursing school is happy with what we have accomplished so far. One little hiccup that we thought we had a church, we ended up having to go to a library. So, but it actually worked out really well. It was a library conference room, but anyway, it was great. And I went last time and it was a lot of fun. So one thing that I forgot to mention was that we did try to make it bilingual in Spanish. We had a lot of flyers. We had our flyers translated. I did budget initially in the grant to have like translators come with us. We had an incentive to have have a gift card if the parents filled out the survey, that kind of thing. Yeah, it was just really, it's been a big learning experience, and I'm happy. I'm curious to hear what the next presentation and see how they did theirs, because I think I can learn a lot from them. But I was very happy. It's my baby, like I said in the other meeting we had. Yeah, anyway, that's it for today. Thank you.
Thank you, Megan.
Thank you.
We now have Christine McGrain from Rhode Island.
Hi. Okay, so the Lifespan Respite Grant Project is a statewide project in Rhode Island. The part that I do is a portion of it because I specifically concentrate on pediatric care. So you can see on this first slide that it's from the Lifespan Respite Grant. You can go to the next slide. This was just an introduction one. And what we do is actually very similar to Megan's program in that it runs on Saturdays. We found that seemed to be the best with like focus, looking at things at students and parents. That seemed to be the better day. I started out doing this back in 2018 as part of the grant project, modeling it after what they do for adult daycare. They call it First Sundays in Rhode Island, where adult daycares will offer that for families who are caring for loved ones with dementia and Alzheimer's. And they're like, why can't we do that with children? So it started with that as a leadership project for a student in their last semester of the nursing program. And that particular student had done some in-home respite with me in her pediatric rotation and was interested in continuing on. So we created this as part of the curriculum. That student helped me kind of creating the plan for it. And then as I did it, there was a PT faculty person, physical therapy faculty, who I was very friendly with, and she had said to me, well, their PT students don't really get a lot of pediatric exposure. She's like, can I come to the program and bring some students? So I kind of said, well, could we use your building space? So she got access to it. And that's what this is. It's the PT clinic, which runs Monday through Friday, when they see mostly like people that with Parkinson's, post-stroke, they do a lot of physical therapy as their clinic. We have to turn that space into safe space for children who have special needs. So a lot of the equipment gets moved into a back room. We pull out mats, we pull out, big balls, some of it you can't see in here, toys, lots of things that, to make it fun and therapeutic for children. So it's a great use of space, and it's grown. We actually started with only a handful of families who were utilizing it, local families, which you would think in Rhode Island, everything's local because it's so small, but some very local families. And the word spread mainly word of mouth from parent networking. I now have, we also offer, it's one-to-one, and now it went from like once a month on Sundays to then twice a month, because more students wanted to do it and more parents wanted more. And then it became part of my dissertation work, which I just completed my dissertation in December, finished my PhD. But last spring, I did it weekly because I wanted to do a pre and post survey with parents looking at their stress level and also some qualitative work. And I am presenting at the conference in Albany on my study, but I won't get into all that. But what has happened with it is from finishing that, and a news outlet went out into like the URI kind of news sweep that goes to alumni. It has gone to like parents. I have parents like, can I sign my child up for next semester? Because we don't run through the summer. And by the end of this semester, we went from like having like maybe anywhere from 5 to 10 kids every Saturday to now it's like 12 to 16 children. Nobody misses, and they come every single week. And it's like, but it's a constant recruitment of students to make sure I have one-to-one. So now the future goal, if you want to, you can just switch the slide. And it was only a 3-slide thing. The future goal is, knowing that this group option seems to be working. People seem to like it, and we've talked about it with other faculty of maybe trying to do this with the adult community, that maybe some people don't want strangers coming into their home, but they might be willing to drop their loved one off for X amount of time so that they can go do stuff that take care of themselves. So it's meeting those family caregivers in what they need. They simply want time. What we need is dedicated space. Like I said, that's my new agenda. And we're looking at some space that's in the city that we can utilize free of charge. That's the nice thing. It's free for families. It counts as clinical hours, not just nursing. I get nursing students from all the nursing programs around the state, but I have also had physical therapy students. I've had students from human development and families, social work. I've had a social work student from Connecticut who happened to be visiting her friend in the nursing program, but her professor gave her clinical hours for doing my program while she was here in Rhode Island. It was really funny. So it really has spread. The word has spread, and parents want more of it. Students are very interested in it because they get clinical hours, and look at how much fun that is. How can you not want to do that? So that's the goal, is looking for dedicated space. I'm trying to schmooze with some senators and Congress people so to get some congressional funds, and we need a building. Yeah. So that's kind of it. I think I kept it in my time zone, which is really hard for me because I could talk forever.
Thank you so much, Christine. We're moving on to our next topic, serving grandparents and relative caregivers. And next up is Kim Vivaldi from Virginia.
Oh, let me turn on my camera. Good afternoon. I'm Kim Vivaldi. I'm with the Commonwealth of Virginia, Division for Aging Services. I'd just like to mention right now that I am currently coming to you from right outside of New Orleans, Louisiana, where I am a long-distance caregiver for my parents. And just what a great opportunity is to work in caregiving and also participate in it, and to have this opportunity to be here with my parents as I'm meeting their needs right now, and also to be able to speak with you. Also would like to give a shout out, even though he is on the line, I don't think he'll be very happy about it, but Mr. Nick Schlintz hired me over a year ago to assist him with the Virginia Lifespan Respite Voucher Program. He has been a champion for caregivers. It started at a very, very young age, where he began caring for his grandfather. And anyways, just to kind of ring his bell a little bit, today he was in Norfolk, Virginia, where he received a plaque for Kids and Kin and Care Shipping Incorporated from them for Kinship Caregiving Community Championship. And that is what our presentation is about. You can change to the next slide. Maybe. Yeah, there we go. Always believe in the power of words. So what we have, we started the program back in February, where we opened up our traditional Virginia Lifespan Respite Voucher Program, which targeted caregivers who were caring for someone with a medical or medical disability of some type. The need was addressed to us not only by our governor, but also by the people out in the community. Kind of simplistically saying that it is grandparents raising grandchildren. Of course, we know it's greater than that being offered out through the kinship. And so what Mr. Slintz did, along with some other stakeholders and myself in the community, was obtain additional funding and opened our Virginia Lifespan Grant up to grandparents, family members, raising their children. So we started accepting these applications in February. And I just provided you with a quote for what a family member who is now raising their 3 grandchildren. The most powerful thing is they desire some time for themselves to maintain and grow their own relationship as they move forward in this long journey of being not just grandparents, but acting as parents to the grandkids. So we utilize the base of the Virginia Lifespan Respite Voucher Program and altered the application just a slight bit to open it up to families who are interested in applying for the $595 reimbursement voucher program. Next slide. What we found was it's still very new. The information's getting out. We accept a lot of things as in that makes them eligible for the kinship respite voucher program. One of those being court documents that indicate that they are the legal caregiver for their family members, but we also accept IEPs and other information. What we found when we opened it up, and we probably had about 25 plus applications come through, I found more than half of them are not only raising a grandchild or a niece or a nephew, or maybe even a sister and brother in certain circumstances. They were also caring for someone with a disability. Okay, so those were able to be channeled into the traditional lifespan respite voucher, which had a larger amount of funds to be distributed out comparative to this new program, the kinship one. So the ones who have been, who fall into the range, who are providing just court documents, no documentation associated with any sort of disability, what we found was the average age of the child that the grandparents are caring for is 7. And our range so far is 1 to 14, as you can see. 30% of the kinship application are caring for 2 or more children. We had one we received just the other day where she was caring for 4 of her grandchildren and sent all 4 legal documents to indicate that she was seeing them. Something else that's interesting, by utilizing the traditional lifespan respite voucher application, we are able to gather information concerning possible disabilities and information. And again, with the disability, we are like y'all, we require some sort of medical note, an IEP, or some sort of other document that indicates the disability. On the kinship application, which is a different color, okay, our traditional one is like blue. We kind of altered it, like I said, to meet the kinship needs. We also left on there because Mr. Slintz and the other stakeholders, and I agree with them, felt that it was important for us to ascertain what other kind of illnesses they may be dealing with, even though they don't have that kind of access to their medical records. And one of the things we found, that of the children being cared for by families that applied for our kinship program that qualified inside of that, who are now in that separate type program, currently half of those children in their custody have self-reported a mental disorder of some type for these children. Again, we're not reaching out asking for specific documentation to kind of move them out into a different program. The heart of the program is still to provide respite to those grandparents, those family members who are currently providing care to the loved one. I think that's kind of all the information I have. I look forward to any information you might be seeking in the comments, and we can move on to the next person. Bye.
Thank you so much, Kim. The next topic, planning for the future, and our first speaker is Geraldine Ellis from Delaware.
Hello, nice to be with you all here today. I do want to let everybody know that I will be leaving this position here in a couple of weeks on May 16th, and I do have the individual from DeSapid, Kate Rasaluva, is on our call today to just learn from everybody and hear other people presenting. Sorry for the busy slides. I kind of had a lot of information to stick in a couple of slides here. So the Division of Services for Aging and Adults with Physical Disabilities has used part of our year one lifespan respite grant to do some program evaluation over our lifespan respite program. And some of the information that's coming out of that, we've actually used to enhance our draft state plan on aging, which is currently in their public commenting period, following the target areas that are specifically outlined in equity in our caregiving focus areas. So our goal number 8 is going to be to continue stakeholder engagement to reach new partners, to understand unmet needs in the community, identify individuals and communities with the highest economic and social need, and build and expand person-centered service delivery. This was definitely something that we found through our program evaluation. Our program evaluator is actually Guidehouse, who's done a really great comprehensive job of kind of taking a look of the needs of Delaware so that we can really take a deep dive into where the services are needed. We did a number of caregiver focus groups and different ways to collect their feedback, and just understanding what the needs are for this respite community in Delaware is just a really big need, a big focus area. Sometimes there aren't enough programs, or maybe programs might be underfunded, and we're trying to just think outside the box and find new ways to deliver these services to people in the community. And a big focus has also been they don't want individuals coming into their home. And so community or congregate style respite is really what the focus of what caregivers want in Delaware. And our goal number 9, enhancing services and supports for family caregivers by implementing the recommendations and best practices from the Delaware Caregiver Action Network, which actually came out of a former grant. The Delaware Caregiver Task Force, which is made up of legislators, our Raise Family Caregiver Advisory Council, and other organizations in coordination with the National Technical Assistance Center on Grand Families and Kinship Families. Next slide, please. So here we have our national strategy goal of achieving greater awareness and the outreach to family caregivers. We want to just make sure that there's a vision, there's legislation, any types of different supports, things that we can recognize, assist, and make better. So here are our strategies and our objectives in our draft of our state plan on aging. By using the 2022 national strategy to support family caregivers in the RAISE Act state policy, we're going to use that as a guide to understand and implement better national best practices for caregiver support. And things like this learning collaborative have just been invaluable to me as I'm going through our lifespan respite grant, and to listen. So these bring, brag, and borrow sessions are going to be very great to use in the future as well in our work. Using the recommendations from the Delaware Caregiver Action Network and our task force and other similar groups to identify these recommendations so that we can further policy and different programs. So what we're going to be doing with DCAN is Guidehouse is actually also contracted with some of our ARPA funding to sort of expand that network. If you're not familiar with Delaware, it is very small. We are a single unit on aging, and a lot of times what happens, it's a blessing and a curse. We get a lot of people at the table because we're so close to one another and we can talk to people, but on the other end, a lot of those same people are at the table in multiple places. And we really want to make sure that caregivers are brought to the forefront and be able to hear their voice. So when DCAN was first started, it was really great. We had a lot of caregivers. We had a lot of different community members and different organizations like Nancy Rinaldi from Easter Seals, who's also on this call, who we work closely with. but it got to a point where it was just very heavy on one side, which is this provider and community side. And so we're working to realign and bring more caregivers into that and try and figure out how is it going to work best? What can caregivers bring to the table? What times, settings, things like that. We are going to engage in robust community outreach and marketing. We already had some success on the Are You a Caregiver campaign that we did about a year and a half ago. But one of these things that have been brought to our attention also through this grant and the program evaluation is that people just don't know in Delaware where to go. They don't identify themselves in different groups as caregivers themselves. And even if someone is looking for respite, we might have it on our website. And I know Easter Seals does a great job of marketing our lifespan respite voucher program since they're our provider for it. But a lot of people just don't know where to go. So we're going to build on that by making sure that even throughout the rest of this 2-year grant and pilot programs, we're outreaching in very different places to make sure that people are aware of respite services in the future. So here we go. We're also going to develop a comprehensive marketing campaign that's going to piggyback on that surrounding our early detection of Alzheimer's disease, a diagnosis of dementia, and to serve caregivers of individuals living with ADRD better. So we're going to be doing that through our dementia-friendly Delaware work, but also I hope to make sure that we have some pilot respite programs specifically for this group of individuals throughout our lifespan respite enhancement grant. That is a big focus for me to make sure that they have some type of a program so that individuals living with ADRD can, possibly have some type of congregate respite and their caregiver can get the break that they need in a trusted way. So there's a couple of different ideas going around right now about this, but this is an area of need in our state for sure. Next slide, please. Strengthening services and supports for our family caregivers. We want to make sure that they have consistent access and a huge array of different programs that are effective, person-centered, culturally competent, and linguistically appropriate. This is a very big need in the state of Delaware to have culturally competent and linguistically appropriate trauma-informed programs for caregivers. So we're going to be enhancing programming and services using recommendations from our Aging in Place work group, which is a group of legislators that have been meeting over the last, I believe, year and a half. That came out of a different task force, the caregiver task force, and they have actually placed some recommendations going forward. They're kind of wrapping up that group now so that we can figure out, so that not me, but the state can figure out where they need to go in the future to help better support caregivers in Delaware. Implementation of an evidence-based caregiver assessment and an evidence-based or evidence-informed family caregiver support program. So something that was actually written into our lifespan respite grant was this evidence-based caregiver assessment. Delaware currently is looking at TCARE to be able to have and implement that within our state. It's something that DSAPID has been looking at for quite a while because we don't really have a very good caregiver assessment form right now. And this is our wave of the future and something that we're putting into our state plan to make sure that we're sort of holding our feet to the fire, so to speak, to make sure that we can implement this going through. Are you a caregiver material? Yes, I will. I'll grab your chat questions later and I'll make sure that I can share those materials. Research and expand our family caregiver and Alzheimer's disease and related dementia caregiver supports to include culturally appropriate services and programming for underserved populations in Delaware, including African American or Black and Latino Black communities, Spanish-speaking and Latino caregivers, and Asian caregivers. We found that this is the biggest pocket of unmet need in our state, and there are plans in the future to go and make sure that we're doing these things. Currently, the state of Delaware has the RCI REACH program, which is our REACH coaches from the Rosalind Carter Institute for Caregivers, and they are undergoing they're undergoing a big change in their program right now to make sure that we can actually accommodate a culturally appropriate that program, which is fantastic if you've never seen REACH, for the African American Black communities and the Spanish speaking and Latino caregivers. We actually were researching this for our last round of ADPI grant application. These were in there, but the Spanish speaking and Latino caregiver supports just seem to be very lacking across the nation. I haven't been able to find one that's sort of been sustained beyond maybe a research grant or something like that. But this one, we're already implementing REACH and it's already successful. So we know we're going to be able to piggyback these two items on there. And we're also looking at possibly doing Alter as well. And the last one in this category is enhancing and expanding services and supports for caregivers of individuals living with ADRD through partnerships with Dementia Friendly Delaware. So currently I am the state lead for Dementia Friendly Delaware, and I've been talking with many different community partnerships and things like that. Some of the things will, I believe, unfortunately be on hold for a little while now, that I will be vacating my position and they will hopefully be hiring the position shortly behind me so that somebody can continue this work. But we've been talking with area museums, area libraries, YMCAs, and different places to become more dementia friendly and partner with our state's Volunteer Delaware and Volunteer Delaware 50+ program to recruit those volunteers to help expand those. So these are some of the things that were all pieces of feedback that were given through our caregiver focus groups and evaluation forms and things like that. If a caregiver couldn't make one of the in-person Zoom focus groups, they were given a questionnaire link that they could fill out regarding respite programs in Delaware. So a lot of these different things were mentioned. These were sort of focus areas that we had in our grant application to begin with. So they really just dovetailed really nicely. And then since we're in the state plan on aging draft feedback sort of process, it just became a natural fit to make sure that those outcomes were put into our state plan on aging so that we can support all of these areas and make sure that they're in our respite focus in the future. So thank you very much. I believe that's it. And I'll go ahead and take a look at those items in the chat and make sure everybody gets those items that were mentioned that they want more information on. Thank you.
Carolyn, that was wonderful. If you want to share those with Arch, we'll be sure to post them if we have your permission to post them on the Arch
Sure,
website,
absolutely.
so everyone will have access. Thank you. Next, we have Rosalind Albert from Washington. Welcome, Rosalind.
Hi, thanks. I'm Rosalind Albert, the Kinship and Lifespan Respite Program Manager at Washington State. I work in the Aging and Long-Term Support Administration. We've held a Lifespan Respite grant here for many years. Part of that project has been a coalition. And because that coalition has been running for many years, I think we decided that it needed a little revamping this go round. So we'll talk a little bit more about that in the slides to follow. Our coalition is a partnership between the Aging Long-Term Support Administration and our contractors at PAVE. PAVE is a nonprofit agency in Tacoma, Washington that works primarily with individuals that are impacted by disabilities, serving primarily youth and children. And so they've been administering the voucher program here in Washington State for us, and also partner with us on putting on the coalition. The coalition serves unpaid caregivers across Washington State and includes some family caregivers, respite providers, organizations that are interested in serving caregivers. And we hope in the future to include employers in the coalition as well. We also have kinship navigators and other providers throughout the communities that are working with families that are needing some sort of respite. So we're excited to have those partnerships. Next slide, please. So with our new revamped model of the Lifespan Respite Coalition, we decided that we should have some sort of purpose statement to kind of have us all focus on, so that we have an opportunity to show caregivers how they fit into the project and how all the participants can feel connected. So our purpose statement that we came up with, it was organizations and individuals working together in combined action for respite services to improve the lives of unpaid family caregivers. Again, that focus being on the unpaid family caregivers. Our previous model was kind of like a opportunity for different agencies to connect and talk about the services that they've been providing, any new opportunities that they have available, doing some brainstorming with each other. And it was mostly just kind of talking out and doing an update on things. We met pretty regularly, but some of the pieces that we found missing is that some of the people weren't at the table that we felt should be coming and participating. And we wanted to have some opportunities for those caregivers to also have a voice at the table. So our new and improved model is looking at inviting staff from all the relevant organizations that serve kinship or family caregivers and kinship caregivers. And so we have expanded our reach out into organizations that may not have been participating in the past or just hadn't more recently been participating. And we set up that focus to be on unpaid family caregivers to also participate. So we're hoping that we will have more participation and a voice for unpaid family caregivers. We also wanted to align our new model with all the goals of the national strategy to support family caregivers, and I'll talk about that shortly. And we meet fewer times per year, but we kind of have a larger, longer session each time, and we're hoping to have some work groups that are an offshoot of this whole coalition, so that people can feel like they have an opportunity to do some brainstorming and maybe do some focused work with each other. And working on an agenda, we developed an agenda that's ongoing so that we can build on that. People know ahead of time what's going to be on the agenda. We have our time that we're meeting together is really focused. And then again, hopefully increasing the participation of caregivers. We also want to find more agencies and educate them on how they could participate in serving family caregivers and stressing the benefits of this organization. Next slide, please. So this slide kind of shows all the strategies and how we are currently or hope to continue to build on those strategies through our coalition. So for increasing awareness and outreach, again, we're working on delving into partnerships with more agencies and organizations out in the community, focusing again on building partnerships with the kinship navigators and also with Spanish-speaking populations. Our tribes, we have several tribes that participate in the kinship navigator program, but we also have a tribe that has done some work in focusing on the respite opportunities. So we want to make sure that we can really connect with them and increase their participation in this coalition. And then for advancing partnerships and engagements with family caregivers, we're really working on intentionally inviting those unpaid family caregivers again and their participation, having them feel like they have a purpose in participating. And we also have opportunity to offer stipends to those caregivers to since they're not being paid like I am to participate in these meetings, we want to make sure that their time is being valued as well. And strengthening services and supports, we're going to be doing some assessments with our coalition participants to find out, how are they currently working with unpaid family caregivers, and what might they be doing, or what are their goals to serve caregivers in the future and moving forward, and what can we do to partner together to make that happen. And then to ensure financial and workplace security, we're going to be meeting with major Washington employers regarding respite and other benefits for caregivers. And we're going to work with the WA Cares program to add caregivers caregiver help guides to the Walk Cares program. And for those of you that aren't familiar with what Walk Cares is, it's a program that's being funded that collects funds from employees to give flexible assistance for respite and other kinds of supports to meet long-term healthcare needs and that type of thing. I'll try to address the questions later on. Sorry, I get sidetracked and then I can't keep track on where I am on my presentation. So I'll finish and then I'll jump to your question. Thank you. And then for expanding data research and evidence-based practices, we're collecting and organizing and analyzing data through our partnership with PAVE. They have a great database that they work with, and we're able to collect information that way. We also have partners like the Kinship Navigator program that also collects data, so we can partner with all of those participants to really hone in on where are we missing the mark, what can we strengthen, what populations are we underserving. So we're really going to be strengthening our programs by working together. And with that, I think I can address the question. Is your coalition housed within a larger nonprofit, or is it run by, managed directly by your? It is managed by our department, but we partner again with PAVE. And PAVE serves, they're based in Tacoma, Washington, but they serve, some of their programs are statewide as well. And many of the programs that we work with also work statewide. For example, I mentioned the Kinship Navigator program. I also oversee that. That is also a statewide program, and many of our partners that participate in the coalition are also statewide as well. Did I answer your question? Hopefully.
We'll have time for questions and answers when all the presenters have
Excellent.
finished
Thank
their
you.
work. Thank you so much,
Thank
Rosalind.
you.
A
That's
lot of
all I have.
exciting things happening in Washington.
Thanks.
Very exciting. Next, we have Adrienne Smith from New Mexico on systems building, our next topic, connecting caregivers to services and providers.
Thank you, Jill. Hi, everybody. My name is Adrienne Smith. I'm the president and CEO of the New Mexico Caregivers Coalition. Our mission is to advocate for direct care workers' education, training, benefits, wages, and professional development so that they can better serve people who are elderly and those with disabilities. Today, we reach as many caregivers of those who are elderly as we do caregivers of those with disabilities. So in a sense, we're already formed across the lifespan. Our lens is that of workforce development. And when COVID hit, we began to serve more and more family caregivers, unpaid family members, especially for the purposes of just keeping people connected and feeling supported. 2 years ago, thank you to ARCH, Administration on Community Living, and Respite Care Association of Wisconsin, we developed a training portal along with 9 other states who were in that pilot. It was a very exciting year. And we then had a training portal that people could go in and spend time online, self-paced, no cost to them, to complete and then earn a certificate of completion for respite care training. For those of you who aren't familiar with that, it's a wonderful way to get your training program started if it could ever happen again. And for us, it was heavily focused on caregivers of people with disabilities. And we find that that's a more complicated, complex field just in our state. There are already more rules and they exist in different silos. Next slide, please. Having that training portal, however, we were learning from the other 9 states in the pilot program that the training portal itself would be the most robust if we had something to connect it to where caregivers could be found. This could be paid professionals who didn't get enough hours at work and were looking for extra work part-time, maybe from family members who were going to have to leave their employment or reduce their hours at work because they just we're caring for a family member for no pay or very little pay. So we've just completed and announced this year that for the beginning of the year, this respite registry nm.org. And thank you, Marcia, for putting that in the chat. You might want to click on that link in the chat just so I can show you around just a little bit. And it is on this slide for those who aren't able to do that. It's a real simple registry. And if you were to click on that link, you'll see that there's a telephone number up there, our email address, and then there's effectively a big waiver statement there at the beginning that says, you know, you're responsible for making sure that the people that you hire from this registry have the qualifications and have been checked and screened the way you want to screen them. And then, Marcia, if you don't mind, I'll show you the link that says I am searching for a respite care provider. And that's where a lot of the power is in this, on this page. We've made it so that a caregiver has to put in all of that information that's on this page. It includes a lot of preferences with which the kinds of people the caregiver wants to work with, maybe has expertise in working with, the distance that they will travel, their own street address, city, state, zip. And if you would, Marcia, click on search without putting anything else in this page. And by doing that, you'll see all of the caregivers who are listed in the registry. In other words, they've been approved to be listed in the registry. This is where they're listed. And you all could just spend any amount of time that you want to, viewing the profiles of these people. We call those profiles. They are listed in alphabetical order. What I'm really proud about and love is the coverage that we have, the geographic coverage that we have, around the state. So a lot of times lately, we're just asking people to, who call us looking for caregivers to go directly to the site, or we'll demo with them on a Zoom link. I really have come to realize how important it is to do warm handoffs as much as possible, or work with the person right there as they call. Most of the time, the phone call that we get is a person who's already in crisis. And so we really don't want to just send them to another phone number or another organization. Next slide, please. We do not award stipends through our registry. We are ready to do that, and we've done that under a number of other grants in the past, and so that's easy for us to do. We also, pertaining to the question in the chat about background checks, we do provide background checks, but we don't do that for these respite care workers because we're not paying them. We're not paying a stipend to any care recipient who hires them. We're not managing the hiring and firing of people on the registry. But we're capable of, and we have, if you know that name, LexisNexis, now called First Advantage, we can get a background check on any person who requests it. And that turnaround is about 24 hours. The 10-state pilot, Alexis Witt, I'm not sure about the answer to that. I'm sure Jill can answer that. Finally, I'll say that I think our web developer for that respite registry would welcome inquiries. Any of you who would be interested in building your own respite registry. He was quick, he was fast. We had to schedule it with him. There were bumps along the way, but I know that was a real need at the time that we wanted to use some people recommended by others in our network, Arch network, that is. They were really snowed under. So we found somebody here. I don't even know where he lives, but he was just terrific. And he's the one who's managing that day to day. The last thing I'll say here on this slide, you can see a woman named Sharon at nmdcc.org. She's our respite care manager, brand new, newly hired, has already earned her salary just in the 1 month she's been with us. As I was interviewing her, she said, "This is something I can get really passionate about." And that, bingo, I think you've got the job. So Lita, I'll put that information in the chat and answer any questions that you have during the Q&A time. Thank you, Jill.
Thank you very much, Adrian. I do want to let you know that Adrian and the New Mexico Caregivers Coalition was one of the pilot sites in the Arch-Nashby Respite Care Association of Wisconsin pilot. So yes, it is the training you heard about in DC, and you're going to be hearing a lot more about it at the Grantee meeting in Albany. We're going to be releasing the replication toolkit at that time if you're interested in participating. Okay, next topic, evaluating caregiver support, and we have Daniel Kultz from Montana.
Hi, everyone. Let's talk food. Food is a form of respite. This is a pilot program that myself and our team at the Respite Coalition have been working on here in Montana for about 6 months now. And about a month ago, we were fortunate and able to finally launch the program, which we're, like I said, really super excited about it. The biggest thing what we're trying to accomplish here is really understand how food is a form of respite for unpaid family caregivers. And so as I mentioned, this program, the food box program, we started shipping foods, the boxes about 30 days ago. Go ahead and flip the next slide, please. So the food box program, we've shipped an estimated, well, no, I'm sorry, let me back up. So we've shipped food starting 30 days ago. We started full out. I'm also part of the Lifespan Respite Coalition that started a program that was a respite retreat program for caregivers, and we were able to link those programs together, link the Lifespan voucher program together, which we have a list of over 1,000 caregivers in Montana throughout the far reaches. So we were able to start gathering those names. So we hit the ground running. We already estimated that we've provided respite as a form of 995 hours to date. That's considering per meal that we ship as about 1 hour of respite. That's just, like I said, it's a guesstimate. We're hoping to gain that information and that knowledge when we evaluate the program, when we're contacting the caregivers after 4 weeks. We believe that this food box program intersects with goals 1 and 5. It has been brought to my attention just today. We probably hit number 3 as well from the national strategy. All 3 of those goals are heavily rooted in the program. The 2 main food boxes, you might be interested. Okay, what kind of food are we shipping to our caregivers? We're shipping 2 types of food. The first is pre-made, healthy, frozen meals made in a local company in Montana. That seems to be the primary method of which people are seeking for respite as a caregiver. We ship 5 meals to a family, meaning in the prepared meals, if it's a family of 3 to 5, we ship 1 box of 5 family meals, and it's enough for 6 servings in those family meals. If it's a couple, if it's an individual who is a caregiver for a partner or a child, we ship individual meals. We ship 12 individual meals. It's equivalent of 5 meals for each person plus a couple desserts. And then the second option that caregivers can choose from, if they find that I love to cook and I find that as a form of respite, we either use, right now we're using HelloFresh, and we've recently this week now used a second company, Blue Apron. And in that, what we do is we provide a gift card for that particularly food box program, and then they get a subscription, and it's equivalent to about 3 weeks. It's 3 meals a week that they are able to do in self-prep. If you can go ahead and flip the slide for me, please. Some of the basic highlights from the data that we're collecting, and we have fed over 421 adults in 4 weeks and 74 children as part of that. We are extremely pleased with the response to this program. It's just overwhelming. I have my graduate student here with me today. It's just the 2 of us. And we have been overwhelmed with caregivers reaching out to the program. Right now, we have shipped food in Montana as one of the largest geographical states to 28 different counties and 5 different tribal communities in Montana. 34% up until last week of the food boxes went to Native American residents. And we're really proud of that because there is great need in Montana. There are food deserts in the reservations. There are no healthy food options. And they have to travel miles to get that type of healthy food. So we're really happy that we're reaching those communities, and we're going to be able to reach back in and get their feedback on how this has been a form of respite for them. The caregiver ages I want to highlight are across the lifespan from 24 to 95. That 24-year-old, I talked to her. She took in her sister's child after her sister was incarcerated. Yeah, it just breaks my heart. And she was how do I say this? She was just emotional with me on the phone because she didn't know how she was going to feed her niece. So I went outside the guidelines and I shipped her 2 boxes of food, just simply because of the need to carry her over. Now, I'm also fortunately the director for the Montana Kinship Navigator program, and I was able to refer her into our other program. So there's that connection, that awareness of other programs, part of that national strategy. We also are able to refer into the voucher program that we have at the state, the respite retreat program that I have, the other programs. It's a linking program at the same time. Total spending, we've been able to acquire additional funds to the original supplemental funding we received for this particular pilot study. Our ultimate goal is to reach and send out more than 300 food boxes across Montana. We have more than 45 counties, but our goal is to hit at least someone in almost every county, making this a statewide program. I could go on and on about what we've already done, but we don't even know the half of it. The data that we're collecting on this is astounding. We are just beginning after our first 4 weeks to reach back and call and get our post-assessment data. How did this actually impact the caregiver's respite? I can tell you stories of the pre-data. Basically, caregivers felt relief the minute they knew they were going to get some prepared meals and they were going to get a day off. I just want to say thanks to Lifespan Respite, Arch, and the ACL for these funds. I mean, we're seeing the impact on real people in our communities. And I know that the research data that we're going to collect from that is going to be phenomenal. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Daniel. That was, I know there's a lot of interest in the chat about your initiative. I think we do have a lot of questions in the chat that maybe didn't get answered yet. So let's open it up if you all want to come off mute and ask a question in person or put it in the chat. Did you hear something you want to learn more about? Would like to ask one of the presenters today? We have 15 minutes to engage in some sharing.
For Megan from Colorado. It's Chris from Rhode Island.
Hi.
My question is, you had RN supervision. So for my program, I'm there every single Saturday. I'm the supervisor. Do you get RN supervisors from Easter Seals? Is that where the RN pool comes from, or
No.
who is actually?
Yeah, it's really tough so for Discovery Club, there are, I think, 3 nurses that kind of rotate, and they are just, they have other jobs. And so they have like a $400 stipend that we pay them, which I've heard is not enough, but for the whole day.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's how, and we kind of find them from, wherever. They just have to be licensed. In the case of Durango, we have somebody, which I'm so thankful for, that's going to be starting. So it's just mostly I would say they come from the schools or word of mouth. So they're not affiliated with Easter Seals.
Okay, but so does your funding to pay them come from the Lifespan Respite Grant? Do you have that in your budget, or is that, where does that come from?
Yeah, previously it was from the ARPA grant that was only good for a year. We were able to get supplemental funding from the ACL, so that's where that is coming from.
Okay. All righty. Thanks.
You're welcome.
Great presentations this afternoon or this morning. This is Sarah Taves from Idaho. A question for the group as well as specifically for Daniel, and I think it was Geraldine and others I know use the TCare platform. We used the TCare platform for 2 years, but actually moved away from that as a caregiver assessment because we were finding that it wasn't really gathering the data that we needed around social determinants of health, which is more that food, housing, income, security sort of a piece. So really glad to see, Daniel, you're kind of thinking outside the box, as others said, around thinking about the social determinants of health that really predict the health and well-being of a family unit. But again, as we've tried to work, we tried to work with TCare and expanding that, but would certainly encourage us all to keep thinking of social determinants as a piece of the puzzle with caregivers and families.
Right. I'm not gonna say that the whole idea was mine. Carrie Riedelbach and Patrick Kelly from Montana DPHHS, they had thought about the program initially, and my history is I come up with a lot of good ideas. I'm a program guy. So when someone throws an idea out there, and they were talking about this at the coalition meetings that we have, and yeah, boom, I was able to run with it. It's just one of those things. It's a collaborative thought process out there, but how it's really coming together right now, we're measuring more so from the perspective of mental health wellness. So we're using the WHO-5. I brought that up at the last Lifespan Respite Conference in Madison, how we're using that for our respite retreat. So we do a pre-test, post-test to determine how it's affected well-being, specifically regarding the respite we provided through the program. But then we're also doing a lot of qualitative questioning regarding their experiences, very experiential. How am I feeling through this respite? And then the full answers that we get. But short answer, I could really go on about that.
And I guess I'll just comment. So we wrote this into our grant, so we don't have TCare operating in Delaware right now, but it's something we've been looking at for quite some time. And what we do, since we lie within the Division of Aging, outside of this grant, all of our respite funding comes from the Older Americans Act Title III. So what we really like about TCare is that it fills sort of our data needs for OAPs out for us, and we might not have the need for additional spreadsheets and things like that we have to make ourselves for our providers. I know Easter Seals Nancy Rinaldi is on this call. She is one of our caregiver resource centers that collects that data for us under that, as well as our program administrator of the Lifespan Respite program. And so the thought is actually to sort of give the CRC coordinators the access to TCare, because they're the ones working with the family caregivers, to feed into the OAPS data that system provides, because right now they're just sort of filling it out on a spreadsheet that our internal data team has made. And this kind of make life easier for everybody, I feel like, because it'll hit all the areas that we need and kind of remove the paper sort of care plans and things like that we've come up with, because internally to DSAP, even on our community services side, the evaluations are for the care recipient, not for the caregiver. So that's what we're sort of looking to do, and kind of kind of close the circle, so to speak, all the way around using it that way. And because Delaware has a very robust sort of social determinants of health with the food portion, with our congregate meals and our home delivered meals, and there's always food banks giving out food. And Delaware's very small. It's not as big as many of the states you have and cover lots and lots of counties. We have 3 very small counties within the state of Delaware. It takes an hour and 40 minutes to drive from top to the bottom, and about 20 minutes to drive across. So we're not dealing with that vastness that lots of other states are dealing with. And there's always lots of food pantries and things like that. So we feel that that piece is pretty well covered, but that's kind of why we're moving towards T-Care, is to kind of fill a lot of other things that we have need for.
Thank you. I see Lisa Schneider has her hand up.
I did. So I wanted to ask, first of all, a lot of great ideas out there that we're already taking notes on wanting to borrow. I'm hung up on, I heard a number of you talk about only serving unpaid family caregivers, and I want to be clear on my understanding of who that exactly is. I know that all of the waiver programs throughout the country are handled a little differently here in Wisconsin. Me as a family caregiver for my daughter, I can get paid for providing care to her. Many family caregivers, that is their only source of income. But I can promise everyone that even though you get paid, you still need a break. If there's no one to relieve you, you still need a break. And I'm just curious as to, is there a different definition of an unpaid family caregiver, or is that, again, not talking as a CNA, I'm talking as a family caregiver, just like in any other instance, as a mom or a dad to their child or adult child. So I want to be clear of that. It's a family caregiver, not a professional. That, again, waivers, some pay for their services in providing that care, especially higher level care, but that, just curious about how that's defined by others.
Well, that would certainly qualify for our programs as an unpaid family caregiver here in Delaware. What me made by unpaid family caregiver is to differentiate between paid CNAs who are, going through training, working at facilities, things like that, to do their job. Like that's their daily doing. That's how they make their paycheck. We're not trying to say that if you're getting paid through a different respite program or something like that as a family caregiver, that is considered a paid family caregiver. That's not the differentiation we make it within our state. At least it's sort of like an unspoken rule, because somebody else made a comment. Then we would have all of these paid CNAs and things like that trying to apply for these programs when we're really trying to help the family caregiver, those individuals caring for their children, their loved ones, their older adults, things like that.
Thank you. I'm happy to hear that.
Lisa, I also, just for background, when the lifespan respite care legislation was being written, the definition of family caregiver was unpaid. And it's exactly what Geraldine was just saying. It was to differentiate from the professional paid caregiver. And we were very concerned about it at the time. There weren't very many states. This is way back in 2006. There weren't very many states that were paying family caregivers to provide care. I think California was one big state that was, but we were concerned about it. So we did include language in the report from the committee to clarify what we meant by unpaid. And we meant it simply to differentiate from paid professional caregivers. And we use a lot of other terms now. Some people use informal caregivers to differentiate from formal caregivers. We at Arch are not crazy about that term because we don't say anything informal about what family caregivers are doing. So we continue to struggle with what is the definition of family caregiver and how do we differentiate from the paid professional caregivers. So I think that's generally true when most states are saying unpaid family caregivers. They're just using that term to differentiate, but not to exclude those family caregivers who are receiving funds through Medicaid waiver programs. Any other questions? I see Jenny has her hand up.
So we've always had, in South Carolina, we've always had a more conservative view of who is and isn't a paid family caregiver. But with the new regulations and the new ruling that came out for Older Americans Act and their definition of family caregiver, they addressed, it says to address family caregivers who may receive limited financial compensation they addressed that and indicated that that's not considered to be a family or not considered to be a paid family caregiver. So that's kind of the definition and the status that we're running with from here on out.
Lori, do you have a question? Stahlbaum?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I lost hearing for a minute. I actually have a comment, if that's okay. I have a lot of comments, but I'll try to keep it to one. Is that okay?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. I want to talk about, give a little bit of background, because the food as respite is a kind of a unique idea. And well, about a year ago, end of last year, we because of the national strategy, which I also co-lead both of the advisory councils that have developed the national strategy and the reports to Congress, and I also oversee ACL's grant for the national Technical Assistance Center for Kinship and Grant Families. So I'm like all over the place, but it all connects. But one of the things we asked about with the supplemental funding was for people to look at the strategy and partly look at the strategy and partly think about things that worked during the pandemic or that you think could reach out and capture an audience or a cohort that you can't reach. So I just mostly want to be clear that when Patrick and when they submitted the thing, like, because people don't always think of food as respite, but when you're in a sparse state, or even, I mean, I'm a caregiver of 2 children with disabilities. I would love to be able to just pop something in, I mean, and I live right outside DC. So we got a lot of creative ideas. You happen to have one presented here, but we were asking people to think outside the box. And I'm just going to repeat that theme as we go along, because a lot of you, what you're doing is trying to think outside the box. You maybe were feeling naive, Megan, but you learned a lot, and you're moving outside your comfort zone, and it may work, it may not, but we won't know until you all try. So it's cool to hear that, in a state, as I once was told, is it Montana? Yeah, there's fewer people in Montana than in the DC metro area. This is the early 2000s when I ran our Alzheimer program, but it's a ginormous state. So anyway, I just kind of wanted to throw that out there that at ACL's request, we asked people to kind of think about their populations, and so because of so many are grantees, that this kind of idea was approved by ACL, and we look forward to hearing how about the data, and because I think all of us, whether we're in a suburban, urban area or rural frontier, know the trouble of how difficult it can be to reach people where there's little communities every few hundred miles kind of thing. So we're always looking for new ideas and new ways to try to help our families. So anyway, I just kind of wanted to touch on that because it is kind of very different from what people do, and I just wanted to make sure people knew that we knew, and we thought it was pretty cool. Be worth giving a go and see how it went. Sounds like it's going really well. So it's always good, we acknowledge thinking outside the box, and we're open to hearing about it. Let's put it that way.
And Laura, you have a lot of comments in the chat about appreciating that ACL is willing to encourage innovation. So thank you for that. What I was especially excited about the Montana project, and if I understand this correctly, Daniel, you are collecting data on caregiver outcomes using the HUVA 5. Did I understand that correctly for the food program? Is he gone?
Yes, he is collecting that data. This is Patrick from Montana.
Yeah, I think that's wonderful. If
you're
you're going to have data on caregiver outcomes as a result of that intervention, we'd be really eager to see that.
Yeah, so it's really great. I'm kind of surprised that it's taken off this quickly in just 30 days. So, but it's a really great program. So,
Any other? We have time for one more quick question before you all get a break. Okay, I think we're gonna let you take a 15-minute break. We did have a question we wanted you to consider during the break if you are so inclined. And if you'd like to share that in the chat, we'd love to hear how you get respite for yourself. We will meet back here promptly. We're right on schedule. So again, thank you all for those fabulous presentations today. It was really incredible information and sharing. And I'm especially thankful that you all kept to the time and we are exactly on schedule. So you've got a 15-minute break. We'll meet back here at 3 o'clock and we've got some very interesting breakout discussion groups to follow. I hope you all had a restful 15-minute break and we're able to get a little bit of self-care during that time. I was very inspired by all of the ways you listed that you engage in self-care. I'm very bad about it myself, so you have inspired me with some great ideas here. So thank you for sharing that, all of you. Well, if we're all back, I think we can, Marcia, if you want to put up the next slide. We're going to spend a little bit of time talking to each other, which is often a highlight of this event. And the topic for this afternoon's breakout discussion is meeting surprises head on. And we hope that you will use the time to speak freely about the biggest surprises you may have had, whether they were good or bad, when you first started working on the Lifespan Respite Care Grant, whether it was an administrative issue, programmatic, funding, partnership, whatever your issue was, whatever was related to your grant. We asked all of you earlier to let us know if you were new to Lifespan Respite or your coalition, or if you were an old hand at this. And we really think that by sharing information, we're all getting to know each other a little bit better. But if you're new, you'll have a chance to see that you most likely were not alone in any of the challenges that you faced or are currently facing. And you might even be able to identify a mentor or two in the group who had the same experiences when they first started out and may have some advice to share. So I hope you enjoy the next 40 minutes. We'll take about 40 minutes to engage in the sharing. You'll all be randomly assigned to one of 4 breakout rooms and you'll have a facilitator. It'll either be Susan Summers, Cassandra Furman, Cheryl Donnell, or me. If you do, again, if you have any issues or you get disconnected, please just log back in with the link you got in your confirmation email and Marcia will put you back into a breakout room. Again, if you run into trouble, you can text her at the number you see on the screen. And then after about 40 minutes, we'll start to finish up our discussions and come back to the main room and wrap up. You'll all be responding to the same questions. So in the last 5 minutes, you may want to help the facilitator identify 1 or 2 major points to bring back to the group. Does anybody have any questions about today's events or presentations or about the upcoming discussion group before we move off into our smaller group discussions? I'm glad to see that most of you have stayed on for this. Okay, you can move us, Marcia, into our breakout rooms. So we'll see you all on the other side. We had some really wonderful, fruitful, supportive discussions, and I hope yours were just as supportive and engaging. And I want to thank everybody in my group for just speaking so freely about what their big surprises were when they first started working with the Lifespan grants. And then to thank our mentors in the group who really shared some sage advice too about how to cope with some of those surprises. So we can do a quick, we have about 15 minutes. We can do a quick report back from each of the groups. If you assign someone to be your spokesperson or if it's your facilitator, why don't we start with Cassandra's group?
Okay, I'm unmuted. Yeah, there was a lot of conversation, but a few of the surprises. One person mentioned a surprise that others were nodding their heads. There wasn't a lot of discussion about this, but it was the very first person who spoke, Dana. Thank you. But maybe it wasn't Dana, but it could have been that no one defined respite the same way in her organization. That people they've used different words and had different understandings about what respite was. So that was a surprising thing. And of course, it was resolved through people getting together and coming up with a clear, understandable definition that everyone could buy into. And then they could talk about respite. And that was something that people were going, yeah, we needed a clear definition of what respite is. The other thing was that I heard a lot of is how change was slower than they would expect. You know, this great idea about respite and these great programs available, and why is it taking so long? And yet, when programs, and Alita said it so beautifully. She said, yes, change was slow, but she was surprised at how much positive change can occur through networking, through good networking and building coalitions, having partners who consistently come back year after year. And I heard that from South Dakota as well, that a great deal of change could happen through these very focused partnership. There's some surprise that the sustained interest by a state network, like, I can't believe it. All these years later, and we still have these networks who are excited to work together and who want to continue promoting respite and supporting caregivers in our state. So those were some of the big surprises, and we came up. I don't know if you ask about ways Arch can help TA, but maybe I'll get back to that after everyone else has shared. Thanks.
Great, thank you. Susan, you want to share from your group?
Yes, my boss will be happy to know I recorded this because
oh my gosh, I hope I did.
I'm famous for forgetting, and it was really a great conversation. So I'm going to skip around a bit, but I'm going to start with a really positive thing from a number of people in the group. The thing that they love about the Lifespan Respite Act and the way that it's administered is that there's so much freedom to create and to innovate. That was a surprise for people when they came on, and really a positive thing. It seems in this group across the board for them. I'm going out of order here, but after I say that, I think this may link to one of the surprises that was a little bit challenging for people, in that when they were new to their jobs, it was sort of hard to grasp actually what, all the diverse information, the diverse partnerships, the diversity in the community, and kind of get a handle on understanding all the different moving parts of respite in a program that is innovative and creative. And this also sort of relates to when there's a huge change in leadership at the respite level, passing that breadth and depth of information along to someone so they can enter and sort of, hit the road running, like know where to start. So that was a challenge for people. One of the other big challenges, and this turned out to be important across a number of people participating in the group, was that the state partners, even when they had strong partnerships, there's the bureaucratic parts of developing contracts and disseminating funds. And this was really challenging for folks who had to wait months and months for the contracts and months for reimbursement for services, and trying to figure out, and this was, it's even more challenging for the state offices that had a big turnover. So not only are you dealing with trying to process paperwork, get money back, but you're trying to establish a new relationship, a friendly cooperative relationship, and feeling maybe a little bit vulnerable in that relationship when you're demanding your well-earned money. So in terms of TA, we talked about maybe we need to get a group together at some point to just talk about people who've used strategies that work. Or one of the things one state shared was that there's a state advocacy group even looking at no interest lines of credit to keep programs going, so that there are not gaps in services. One state shared that they actually had gaps in services for a while they waited for reimbursement. So that was really challenging. And then just related to bureaucracies, that this came up a couple times, that when there's a focus on, because of our siloed system, when there's a focus on one population, people that use a particular language, have a particular understanding, particular priorities, it's often hard to advocate and make people understand the importance of lifespan, and to see the possibility of partnerships for the good of all, and especially for caregivers as well as for the people that they care for. And sure, I didn't do justice at all to what the group said, but those were some of the key topics.
Thank you, Susan.
You're welcome.
Cheryl?
Yeah, we heard some of these themes in our group as well. As far as the surprises, the flexibility on how what the respite modeling can look like, and a little bit of the surprises were that there was so much to learn, that we have to be almost sponges for a year or two to feel like we even know where to begin, and that sometimes it's a little bit challenging. One of the challenges was just utilizing the voucher dollars, utilizing the funding, getting the dollars out the door. There seems to be some barriers there. The challenge of the agencies and the red tape and some of the regs that make it difficult to do that. Another challenge was just kind of finding the right home within the state, the right partners. A good partner really makes a huge difference, and we heard a couple of different examples about that. And so, if you can find the right umbrella to be under and the right partners in your state agencies and your governing agencies, that really makes a huge difference. We talked about just the challenges of decentralized government and the silos that we are fighting all the time, and finding out about respite initiatives going on in other siloed agencies and programs, and just trying to stay up on what anyone else is doing out there. Obviously, networking is an important component. Being able to kind of dig out what is going on in the world of respite. But one of the challenges is that Lifespan is one of the only programs that's, as Lori said, cradle to death. We're kind of the only ones out there that don't cut up our families. And yet there are some transitions sometimes through the respite programs. They age out of one program and are trying to be served by another program, and it's different, and the requirements are different, and the funding is different. As far as some of the TA needs, we were talking a little bit about working with other agencies. CMS came up, and others that may have data on caregivers or on caregiving that we are struggling to access, and how to maybe interface with them, and just advocating for for respite, advocating for those caregivers. You know, why are we doing something? Asking lots of questions. Is there a go around? It's you know, trying not to let something be the excuse. Oh, we're stuck here, because ACL is so flexible in how the funding can be utilized to be able to actually get around and look around those corners and really make a difference for caregivers. Sometimes those challenges provide the opportunities that we can pivot and say, okay, if we can't do that, can we do this? And maybe be able to find a way to move forward that way. Some of the coalitions that are forming, you know, there's a challenge because of the group dynamics and the individual agendas that people bring. And you may want to get the group to move in one direction, but everyone's agenda kind of makes it difficult. Sometimes that's a little bit of a challenge to move things forward. But the one real big plus that we heard in our group is that ARCH and our Lifespan Respite Network and the other states that are participating in these grants are wonderful, wonderful resources. People who are brand new are not alone. They have their, the ECL is wonderful. We've got wonderful resources at ARCH, and people who are willing to share. There's no problem with knowledge sharing amongst our group, and that you're never alone. There's usually been somebody who's had to deal with that particular problem in our network, and to be able to benefit from that. So hopefully I hit most of the main points in our group.
Thank you, Cheryl. Well, I only have about 2 minutes left to share, and I'm not going to be able to do my group justice at all. I'm going to quickly go through, because we had a few different issues than some of you had. Many of them were the same. But one person said she was absolutely shocked at how little funding there was available for respite. Given how important we know that respite is, how come the rest of the world doesn't recognize that, especially funders, and where is the money? That was also true of a partner who said she was really surprised by the lack of support at the highest administrative level of the organization, because it was someone who just didn't understand caregiving at all. But when that administration changed and a new person came in who was suddenly so supportive and understanding of caregiving, the whole movement forward was facilitated much more easily. We heard about the level of stress that all of us who work to serve family caregivers experience. That was a surprise to some new people, as well as some people who've been in the field for a long time. Stressful in that we feel like no matter how hard we work, we can't serve all of those who are in need of respite, and that's very stressful. But they also said that they got around that by recognizing that even if they were only one staff person at a state agency, if they could focus on the things that they did accomplish, that would help them get past that stress level, to focus on the positive, to look to our partners for support in our own team. Those at the Illinois Respite Coalition have a very strong team support, and that really helps them overcome some of the stress. But also the great surprise about again, this was mentioned before, about the learning collaboratives that are available through ARCH and through other avenues that do provide just what Cheryl was talking about, that the support is available from our colleagues and our peers in other states, and that's tremendous in helping to overcome a lot of the issues and challenges that we're facing. And then just really quickly, someone mentioned that it was a big surprise to learn that not all family caregivers are created equal. And that if we have been focusing on one type of caregiver, we're going to have to reinvent ourselves and pivot to make sure we're serving all family caregivers, and don't stay set on doing one thing the same way. We have to keep reinventing ourselves, and being able to be flexible and to be able to pivot was advice from Washington State, because they had to do a lot of that in the very beginning when she first came on, and then COVID hit. So there had to be a lot of being able to be flexible and pivoting. And then this was interesting. Patrick talked about the supplemental funding from ACL being a big surprise. And now learning from that to be ready to go with these new ideas. If new funding should come along, it shouldn't be a surprise, and you should be ready. And they follow the data very closely. They talk about new ideas and innovation all the time so that when the opportunity does arise for a sudden influx of funding, they're ready to hit the ground running. And I asked him, well, how do you sustain something that perhaps you only have 1 year of funding for? And he has a 20-80 rule. You focus 80% of your funds on those things that you can sustain and set aside 20% for innovation that will keep the services alive and changing and continuing to meet caregiver needs. So it was really a fabulous conversation. Does anybody from my group or from any of the other groups want to add anything quickly to something that maybe didn't get mentioned in the report out? We have like 1 second to do that.
I think you did great.
Thank you. Anybody else from any other groups want to add anything that they didn't hear? Okay, well, thank you all for, so many of you, for staying on for these breakout discussions. I hope they were helpful to you and you maybe connected with some other folks that you didn't know before today, and that you'll come back tomorrow because we have 2 full hours of Bring, Brag, and Borrow tomorrow that are going to be even more exciting than today, if that's possible, because they were so great today. So we look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Enjoy your evening. And we'll see you back here at 1 p.m. Eastern time tomorrow. And thank you again, all of you, for participating so fully.